We will wait maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to see if anyone else is going to join us, and then we'll get started for our Pellissippi State teacher education webinar. Okay, so tonight we have with us Laura Lawson. We have Brock Evans, myself, and then I'm sorry, Cindy, I left you off the PowerPoint, but we also have Cindy Sauer on here tonight, and they are going to share with you guys a little bit about the teacher education program. First of all, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Pellissippi State and talk about how to apply to Pellissippi, and then I'm going to turn it over to these folks to let them talk about this excellent program that we have at Pellissippi. So why should you all choose Pellissippi State? First of all, is the academics, and you're going to learn about one of the great academic programs that we have at Pellissippi. And then, of course, these other reasons that we have here are excellent reasons to choose Pellissippi. We have great placement rates, and you know, when you graduate from Pellissippi, you're not going to have a hard time finding a job. So if you decide that you want to come to Pellissippi, where should you start? First of all, you will need to fill out an application for admission. If you go to our website, there is a button on the homepage that looks just like the one here on the screen. You'll click on that. It will take you through the application. You do not have to pay anything to fill out the application. You just apply, and then you should receive something from the admissions office in about 48 hours, just letting you know what your next steps are. We will need to get a copy of your high school transcript, and if you've attended any colleges, we'll also need to get a copy of your college transcripts. If you have ACT scores, we'll need to get a copy of those. We also have a placement test that you can take if you don't have any kind of test scores. If you have any questions about the enrollment process, you can feel free to reach out to us at any of these forms of communication. If you want to email, you can email the Start Strong Center. We also have a chat. If you guys like to chat, you can feel free to reach out to us and chat with us. You can also call the main number 865-694-6400, and we'd be more than happy to help you with any questions that you have regarding enrollment. So now we will turn it over to our teacher education, and they will take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen here. Okay, can you all hear me? We're ready? Thumbs up. Okay. Have you ever dreamed of becoming a teacher but can't attend classes during the day? Well, we may just have the answer for you. So my name is Laura Lawson, and I'm the coordinator of the teacher education program here at Pellissippi State. And I wanted to start off by telling you why we need strong and effective teachers now more than ever. So I always tell my classes that teachers have such a unique and important job. They are teaching our leaders of tomorrow. It is a profession where you can actually say that you touch the future. And you might think, well, what are you talking? There's no way we can touch the future, but you can when you're inspiring the leaders of tomorrow. Teachers have such a special gift, an incredible power, and an awesome privilege. Because think about it, sometimes teachers are with students more hours a day than they are with their families. You can turn an anxious child into one who is excited, or even a teen who is excited about coming to your class every day with maybe the caring tone and the classroom environment that you set. You can also be a positive constant to some students with an unfortunate home life, and you have the ability to challenge a student to his or her highest potential. So teachers are the role models who shape the lives of children in our community. And now more than ever, we need those strong and effective teachers whose hearts are on fire. That's my favorite phrase, whose hearts are on fire and who are so passionate about their jobs and the students that they work with. So we think that we at Pellissippi State have a unique way starting up this fall for you to go about this. So I'm getting ready to turn it over to Brock Evans. He is our cohort specialist here at Pellissippi State. He is a huge benefit of joining our teacher education cohort at Pellissippi State because he is our resident expert on all things cohort related, and will help guide you the entire time you are with us, along with our teacher education advisor, Cindy Sauer, and will help you with any other questions or concerns you may have.
Awesome. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, give me a wave. Awesome. Great. So what is a cohort? So it's kind of a term that gets thrown around in a lot of various aspects of education. So if you're somebody who already works in a school, maybe as a TA or another aspect, you've probably heard the term cohort. So what it means for us here at Pellissippi, a cohort is going to be a group of people working together towards the completion of a degree program or course of study. So at Pellissippi, we have cohorts in a ton of different subjects, whether it be welding, engineering, electrical engineering. I could go on forever, but this is the first time we've had one with our teacher education program. And so what this is going to allow you to do, students in a cohort program are going to move through the curriculum in a group. And what that means is you're going to build learning communities. So you're going to build connections with other folks within the program. You're going to get to build with folks who maybe have different strengths than you do. Maybe they have different weaknesses. So, and that's kind of what being a teacher is, anyways. Correct. So you're kind of always going to be helping each other through this program. So it also means too is it gives you a roadmap, as I always like to say. So a cohort is going to follow a predetermined course sequence and class schedule. So we know when you're going to start, what classes you're going to take in every semester, and we know exactly when you're going to graduate. This cohort itself is going to utilize night and online classes. Okay, so if we can go next there. So what are the benefits of a cohort? Why would we want to do this over, let's say, trying to schedule yourself, or maybe coming to Cindy or myself and not with a group and saying, hey, I want to do this, but I only want to take a couple classes maybe here and there. Well, this is the reason why you'd rather do it with a cohort. So you are going to have that learning community. I've already kind of harped on that, but I think that's probably the biggest benefit. So that's why you're going to hear me talk about it quite a bit. You have that support system of students and professors, because a lot of the professors are going to be moving throughout the program with you, teaching a lot of the same classes. They're going to get used to your group. You're going to get used to them. Professors who understand your current schedule. So we've utilized cohorts forever here at Pellissippi. And so, for example, in the business management and accounting program, our cohort students become so tight with their professors because those professors understand where they work every day. They understand what they're going through every day because these conversations are going to happen in a cohort. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but you get a personal advisor through the whole program, somebody who does your scheduling, somebody who works with you. Obviously, we kind of make it easy on ourselves because we give you a predetermined schedule, but you know what? You still have us to be able to work with you. You're always going to know your path to graduation. You're never going to be in doubt about how do I get this course? When do I get this course? Because following this cohort schedule, we know exactly when it's going to be. And then connections with local employers. So a lot of times our cohort students are already in the field themselves, and you're already going to be working with folks in the field. And this program does require some field experience. So that already kind of helps as well. And then of course a schedule that fits your needs with the night and online program. Okay. So this is just kind of a flyer for our program. A lot of this stuff, I'm just going to go over this briefly because we're going to go over quite a bit of this stuff. So we just went over what a cohort is. A lot of the technical stuff when it comes to teacher education, I believe Cindy's going to cover tonight. But the big thing that I want to point out is there are 24 spots in this cohort. So that is That is one thing when it comes to a cohort is we do have a limited number of spots because we want to make sure that our classes are always filled. And then we want to make sure we have the same folks in those classes. My biggest thing here on this flyer is, can I work full time? And absolutely you can. You will maybe have to make some adjustments for the field experience, which we'll go over a little bit later. But the biggest thing is that you're still able to fully work because you're able to go to classes at night online. This upcoming semester, which you can see down there, we're going to have 2 face-to-face classes where you're going to be interacting with your classmates, and that's going to be psychology of human development and the introductory statistics course. We always want to make sure that our statistics course, you're able to kind of see each other, because we do know that traditionally is a course that folks struggle with. And then a college success course, and then English composition 1. Okay. So I think the next slide though goes even into more detail. So when we said that we have the whole program planned out, we're not kidding. I mean, we literally have everything planned out for you. So we've gone over that first semester. Your second semester, you're going to take, I believe general biology is 4 credit hours. So you're going to have 10 credit hours in your spring semester. Your summer semester will be 6 credit hours. Your next semester, it looks like it's going to be 9, so on and so forth. What I would like to do is, if this interests you, I would like to get a copy of this in your hands. There's going to be a portion at the very end of this where we have our contact information on screen. I would love for you to send me an email so that I can send you a copy of not only this flyer, but the schedule, so that you can have it. Because I think that's really important, because as you can see, it's all laid out. Everything is either online or it's an evening class. And that way we make sure that you're able to work but still finish your degree with us.
Thank you, Brock. And one of the neat things is we have our science and our math methods classes are designed especially for teachers. So like, for example, in science, they'll match the new state standards, and you even get to do part of a lesson plan. So that's kind of a neat thing as well. Okay. So one of the best ways, I believe, to reach any student in the classroom is through hands-on engaging activities. So this is one of the benefits of being a part of Pellissippi State's teacher education program. So our instructors plan their lessons in such a way that students are up out of their seats. I've got my students moving every day and participating in learning games with manipulatives and in groups and partner pairs, so that it's just not lecture style all the time. So by incorporating this now in our college classes, we hope that you in turn will carry this type of teaching over to your own K-5, or some students, our majors are 6 through 12 one day in your future classroom. So I want you to take a look right there, just some snapshots of our classes here at Pellissippi State. Take a look at those photos and kind of get a feel for what our teacher education classes are like. You never know what you're going to be doing, whether you're going to go outside to learn a brain break game or do a hook to guess which disability that we're going to be talking about, or going to a computer lab, a Mac lab, to create flip charts so that you'll understand how to create slides that you'll use on an active board or a smart board in your future classroom, or modeling a lesson from start to finish, maybe even using Twizzlers as your clock hands. Or here's something a little older: instead of speed dating, we can do some speed dataing in class. So and even during the pandemic, we've tried to engage our students even through our hybrid classes. So whatever you throw at a teacher, we are flexible, and we can handle whatever comes our way, no matter which way we teach. So another benefit I feel of Pellissippi State is smaller class sizes. They're going to be no more than 24 in a class, which allow us to do activities like this. It's not like 100 students in a class like a larger university. And we even have extra learning opportunities in our teacher education program through professional development sessions and service projects offered each semester. So here is a look at the 2 EDU or education classes that you will be taking over the course of your time in the cohort. The first one is, we call it EDU 2010. It's Introduction to Teaching. And this class kind of covers, as you can see it right there, the teacher, the student, and the school. Then after that, we'll have our midterm. We talk, we talk about classroom design even before that. Then we get into lesson planning with the state standards. We talk about teacher evaluations because you have to know what's expected of you as a teacher in order to help plan that lesson. We talk about differentiation strategies because remember, not every student in your classroom is going to be the exact same out of a cookie cutter. So you've got your approaching on-level and advanced students that you need to plan for. And then we'll end by talking about the hiring process. Now, for the cohort, you'll take a second education class. We refer to this as EDU 2015. It's called Children with Exceptionalities, K-5. So this gives you the special education basics, your first taste of special education. We talk about the history of special education, landmark cases and laws that got us to where we are today, the RTI process and intervention groups, the IEP process and mock, and we even have a mock IEP meeting where everybody will come as a different role. And it's really neat because you don't know what the next person's going to say, much like an IEP meeting. And so you have to think off of the cuff. And then we will, after the midterm, we will study each individual exceptionality and disability one by one. We'll just kind of dive deeper into each. Okay, now another benefit of coming to Pellissippi State for our teacher education program is that with our 2 education classes, you get to participate right away. I know some colleges and universities, they'll hold off until kind of your junior, senior year, but even as a freshman and a sophomore, you'll get to participate in a 15-hour field experience inside of a local public school. So we partner with Knox County, Clinton City, Maryville City, Blount County, and you'll get to learn firsthand from a fully running classroom. And these are pictures of our actual students in class. These aren't photo stocked. These are our Pellissippi students. You can see their badges right there. Look how nice and professional they look. But in this setting, you get to see what we've talked about in class. And on campus come alive in real life. And that's my favorite part of teaching, is to just see that full circle connection, that full circle moment. Now, one thing, the field experience is what students say in their teacher education class is their absolute most favorite, one of their most favorite things about the teacher education program. But I wanted to say this when we're talking about cohort, and most of you all might be working full time or have responsibilities during the day. I know you might be a little worried or concerned how you can get this in. So the suggestion that I have, especially because during the pandemic, we've had a lot of students work full time. To get these hours in, some of them have taken an extended lunch break. So maybe instead of an hour lunch break, you could ask your boss or supervisor if you could take 2 or 3 hours for that day. And then when you come back in the afternoon, maybe you could stay extra. So instead of getting off at 5, you might stay until 6 or 7 to make it up. Another idea would be to actually take a few half days so that you can go for 3 or 4 hours into your school. And if you do that, you can get it in at like 4 or 5 different visits. The only thing, and certainly I think the teachers would understand if this is your absolute only way you can do it. If you take off a whole day, and so you're only going for 2 whole days, sometimes the teacher doesn't really get to know you. But this is the first time we've done a cohort, so we will work with you. So there's just lots of ways to do it. And 15 hours really happens quicker than you think. When you transfer on to another college or university, you'll do your practicum hours, and those require like 45 hours at a time. So 15 hours is nothing. We can get that in for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Sauer, who is another big benefit about coming to Pellissippi State and studying in our teacher education program. So lots of students at Pellissippi are assigned general advisors, but Cindy is the only teacher education advisor at the college. So therefore, she knows every aspect of what you will need to earn your degree from start to finish. And let's just say that she's a pro at the teacher education pathway and getting you transferred onto your next 2-year college or university.
Thanks, Laura. You're so very, very kind. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy you all could make it with us tonight. I always get really excited to start a new program that involves teacher education. So this slide sort of just shows you the different pathways that we have to get a licensure here at Pellissippi State. My main focus tonight is going to be on that first circle, that AST, Associate of Science and Teaching. That's the pathway that we will be following for this evening cohort. But that is a pathway that is for students who want to go and teach kindergarten through 5th grade. So it's the first 2 years of a path that will get you a licensure to teach K through 5. We have several other AST pathways as well. It's just, they just do not involve this evening cohort, right? So we have some pathways for pre-K to 3rd. We have secondary education English, secondary education math, secondary education social sciences. So several different AST pathways, but just want to stress again that this cohort, this evening cohort that we're going to have, is going to be specifically for students who want that licensure for K through 5. But we do have several different pathways that we can work on if K through 5 is not your focus and you'd like to look into other teacher licensure programs. We do have some other pathways that we can always look at in a different format other than this cohort. So as you can kind of see on this slide, we have that pre-K to 3 licensure, there's middle school licensures, high school licensures, and then of course, special education, art, music, and all will follow a different pathway at Pellissippi State. So I always tell my students, the most important thing that you can do for me when you come to see me is know what licensure you are wanting to pursue. And then the second most important thing is knowing where you want to go after Pellissippi State, because answering those 2 questions for me will help me get you into the right pathway here. But again, tonight we're sort of talking about that AST K through 5 pathway.
Thank you, Cindy. So a lot of our elementary students that want to be elementary teachers, they always ask us, well, you know, there's kind of 2 different degrees, K through 5 and pre-K through 3. How do I decide between teacher education and early childhood education? And kind of the thing that I always say, if you want to go the early childhood route, like pre-K through 3, more classes are focused on preschool and daycare settings. They're for younger children. But if elementary is what you have your heart set on, which I think, you know, our cohort is only K through 5, kindergarten through 5th grade, so you should be in the right place. If your heart is in elementary, I say teacher education, we talk more about elementary school topics, elementary age students, and, you know, the K through 5, K through 12 lesson planning. So hopefully that is you tonight and you're in the right spot, because our only degree for the night cohort is kindergarten through 5th grade.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk just briefly about some of the additional requirements that you'll need, just that the state of Tennessee is going to require for anyone who's wanting to get a licensure. And so, of course, since the state of Tennessee requires it, we also are going to require it for all of our licensure pathways. So the first thing the state of Tennessee is going to require is, of course, we have to follow and complete the curriculum that's set forth, right? So again, every pathway, every licensure pathway is going to have a different curriculum, and it's my job to make sure I get you on the correct curriculum and that we follow that and we pass all of those classes. The second thing that's going to be important is that you have to have a 2.75 GPA in order to get into any licensure program. So what I mean by that is you can have below a 2.75 GPA, but you have to have that 2.75 when you're ready to graduate with Pellissippi State, right? So when you're ready to move on from me and move into that 4-year institution, that GPA has to be a 2.75 or higher in order to get into their college of education. So a lot of times people will say, well, I can't get into Tennessee Tech unless I have a 2.75. No, you can get into Tennessee Tech. You just cannot get into the College of Education. So that's something I'm going to be paying close attention to while you're with me throughout these next 2 years. I'm going to be paying attention to how your classes are going. We have 3 specific classes that you have to get a specific grade in. English Comp 1 and English Comp 2 will require that you have a C or higher. And then when you take our Intro to Teaching course, that's going to require that you have a B or higher. And other than that, I'm not going to be very specific. I'm not going to care a ton about what your grades are. I'm just going to care about what that overall GPA ends up being. One important note, if you come to me with transfer credit, so if you're coming to me and you have some transfer credit from a different institution, your GPA is going to start over again when you come to Pellissippi State. But for the state of Tennessee, not only will you have to have a 2.75 GPA with me, but your overall GPA for all coursework you have taken at every institution is also going to have to be a 2.75 GPA. Then the next thing that we have on here is the Praxis course. So in the state of Tennessee, the way that part of the way you're going to get licensed is you're going to have to go through a series of tests that they call the Praxis series. And that very first test in the Praxis series is the only test that we look at here at Pellissippi State. All of the other Praxis tests that you have to take will come once you get to your four-year institution. But here at Pellissippi, we do concern ourselves with that very first test, and that's called the Praxis Core. It is also the only test in the Praxis series that you can actually be exempt from. So if you happen to have a 21 or higher on an ACT, and we will take an equivalency of that in an SAT form as well. But if you have a 21 or higher on the ACT, you can be exempt from taking that Praxis test. If you do not have a 21 or higher, you either have to go back, try to take that ACT over again, try to get that 21, or take the Praxis Core test. I am not going to care how old your ACT is. So when you go to apply to Pellissippi State, they're not going to want you to have an ACT that's older than 5 years. But for my purposes here, it's okay if your ACT is older. Apparently I can't say that with that name today. It's okay for me if your ACT is older than 5 years. So that's going to be another requirement for us. And we're going to work on that as you kind of go through this program. So you do not have to have that right away. It's not something we're going to jump right out and do, but something we're going to work on as we kind of go through this path, this 2-year path. The next thing is that I'm going to require you to have 3 positive dispositions. They are like recommendations. You're going to be required to have 1 recommendation from your Intro to Teaching course. And you're going to sort of learn how to get those dispositions. And then you're just going to be required to get me 2 more before graduation. And then last but not least, as if that's not enough, right? You're going to be done with all of that for me, and you're going to be ready to go on to your 4-year institution. But your 4-year institution will require you to go through an interview. And so again, that's just the state of Tennessee, a requirement for them. So no matter where you transfer to after Pellissippi State, you will be required to go through an interview before you can get into their College of Education. I think this one's me as well, right, Laura? Yes. So sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. So one great thing that we have at Pellissippi State is we have this awesome partnership with Tennessee Tech. And we call it our 2+2 program. And it's basically a program where you can do 2 years or your AST degree with us and finish that up, graduate with me, and then you can move right into Tennessee Tech and complete your last 2 years with them. And Tennessee Tech comes to our Hardin Valley campus instead of you having to go physically to Tennessee Tech. So it's really great because you never leave Pellissippi State. You spend that first pathway doing our AST degree, you'll graduate with me, and then you'll do Tennessee Tech for the next 2 years. And Tennessee Tech also works as a cohort. So you'll start with a group of students and you'll run through that pathway for the whole 2 years with that same group of students. So it's a really, really great program that we have at Pellissippi. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go to Tennessee Tech. Our pathway will transfer to other institutions, any state school other than UT. But if you want to go to UT, we'll talk about that at another time. But it will transfer to any other state school and also some private schools in our area, like Carson Newman, Tusculum, King, South College. So we definitely can find something that will work for you.
Yeah, there we go. So we're just going to hammer home what we covered at the very beginning of this. So how do I get it started? You're going to go to our main web page. Debbie showed you it is a massive button that says get started now, or it says apply now, one of those. Or you can just go to pstcc.edu/admissions and start that application. It is completely free. I would suggest, if you're going to indicate on there for adult students, you will want to make sure that you indicate that you are an adult student. There is an option for that. You'll want to complete the 2021-2022 FAFSA at fafsa.ed.gov. If you search FAFSA right now, there's going to be about 100 listings on Google at the top that aren't fafsa.ed.gov. So make sure you end up at fafsa.ed.gov. That is where you want to go. There's a lot of websites out there right now that are try to act as a guide or something of that nature, but just make sure you go directly to the FAFSA website. And then if you're an adult student, so when we say adult student, by clarification of the state, what that means is at least 24 years of age and you file independent on your taxes, then you are considered an adult student. Now, to be qualified for Tennessee Reconnect, you have to be an adult student that does not have a bachelor's or an associate's degree. Okay. If you meet those requirements, the state of Tennessee will pay for you to be able to go to school as long as you take 6 credit hours a semester. So obviously with the cohort, we have you in usually about 9 to 10, somewhere in that range. So Tennessee Reconnect will cover the cost of your program here at Pellissippi State with us. That's pretty awesome. The only thing you're going to have out of pocket for an expense wise, if you're somebody who qualifies for Tennessee Reconnect, is just your books. That's and your living expenses, don't get me wrong, that sort of things, but it covers all of that for you guys. So just wanted to hammer that home again real quick. And then next, I believe, yep, it's all of our contact information. Please take a chance to write this stuff down. All 3 of us would be more than happy to help you. Like I said, I would really love to get a copy of the schedule and the flyer into your hands. So if you see my contact information there, btevans@pstcc.edu, please send me an email. Let me know you're interested. If we just need to do a one-on-one meeting and maybe talk a little bit more, I would love to do that as well. So, and if you have questions, if you have questions about like the state of Tennessee requirements and things of that nature, please write down Cindy's contact information. That is something that Cindy and Laura are absolute experts on. I'm more of the application, financial aid, and getting you registered for classes. So, but please write that down. So we'll open this next part to questions. If you will write those in chat, if you do have questions. I've got to get the chat up myself. So we'll give a couple seconds to see if we do have any questions here.
I'll ask a question. Are there any questions that typically students will ask you about education? Is there anything that's a common question that is asked over and over again?
I see Aaron wrote that. Aaron, do you mean like about the cohort, or do you mean just teaching in general?
I think it could be either. I think is kind of how he meant it.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think, as far as like questions about, a common question I get with cohorts, for example, would be, can I drop in, drop out of a cohort? So can I decide to go for 1 semester, then take a semester off, and then try and pick up? That's not something you can typically do with our cohorts, and it's once you get started, we really need you to power through and kind of finish the program. The reason for that being, not only does it keep you on track with the schedule. It also doesn't leave any gaps in your financial aid. Because a lot of times with the state of Tennessee, if you go one semester and then you take a semester off, especially with Tennessee Reconnect, that's something that can really throw off both financial aid, your advising, your class schedule, all of that stuff. So that's a pretty common question I get in regards to cohorts is well, if I decide to leave for a bit, can I do that? Before you leave, we're going to provide you all the support that we can, online tutoring options, things of that nature. If it's a schoolwork issue, we have a ton of resources. And one good thing that we kind of took away from the coronavirus here, I actually work in the student affairs department. And one thing that we took away from the coronavirus is our online tutoring services that we provide to students now are so expansive. We didn't used to have those options, and now we've got tutoring available. Now, I will say in the education classes, you're going to want to work directly with your professor, but like math for adult students, I know always coming back is so scary, but we have so many fantastic tutors in math and other areas that, we're going to get you through. I promise we're going to get you through.
I have to reiterate that with Brock. I think that's the one thing that I find the most often is students worried about whether or not they can do it and whether or not they can handle the workload. When we rattle all this stuff off about Praxis and GPA, I mean, it gets a little bit overwhelming, but my job is to keep track of all of that for you. And your job is just to go in and do your best in the classes and let me worry about making sure you have what you need. And so I do feel like we try to make it as comprehensive as we possibly can. I mean, I'm going to get you, if you come to me and you're like, Cindy, I'm struggling. I mean, I'm going to get you the help that you need. And we have lots and lots of different resources here at Pellissippi.
And one of the benefits, I know I went through a cohort when I was getting my master's degree. It is amazing because of the people. It's that group you go through with you go with that same group through all of your classes and you get to know each other. You become friends and confidants. And when you get stressed, you can call about homework. You can, ride together to some places. It was just amazing. I wish I could have done that with even my undergrad in a cohort. It's just neat because you just become a family.
I see that there is a question in the chat that says, what does it take to teach high school? Is it more education? And should you plan on getting a master's degree? Actually, no, you can do a bachelor's degree and get a licensure to teach with a bachelor's degree for high school. If you get a master's degree, I mean, you'll make more money, but and it does somewhat depend on the program that you choose to go to after Pellissippi. So I use UTK as an example because it's one of the closest transfer schools that we have. They do have several programs that will require a master's degree for secondary education or high school, but not all of them. That is something that they're sort of transitioning out of. So no, you do not absolutely have to do a master's degree unless you pick a program that requires it.
Okay, and we do have a question that popped up in the question and answer box. It says, I have previous credits for this program, so I wouldn't necessarily need to take some of the classes. Am I still eligible to be part of this cohort? Who would like to answer that?
So I can kind of tackle that. That's actually going to be on a case-by-case basis because it's going to come down to, are we still able to provide the number of credit hours you need for financial aid? If it's general education classes, generally, obviously we can traditionally work that out. We can find a way to make an alternate path for a student. So that would be probably on a case-by-case basis is the best way I know how to answer that. I have a lot of students who come into me with previous credit and we still find a cohort path for them. It just gets difficult, if it's somebody who's bringing in, 15, 18, 20 credit hours. And then, the schedule that we have left for them doesn't look like a cohort schedule, then it gets a little bit more difficult. But we'll work with you the best that we can. So it would really need to be, long story short, we need to do like a one-on-one meeting and really kind of sit down and see your previous credit, where you fit in, and where we go from there.
Do we have any more questions, or is there anything that you all want to share? Anything that we didn't cover?
I think we're good on our end.
Yeah.
Well, very good. If there's no more questions, then, oh, can you all show your contact information one more time?
Yes.
Yeah, for the student who asked that question, if you don't mind, if you'll just write down my contact info and then just reach out to me. I'd like to work with you on your previous credit, what that kind of looks like, and we can take the schedule that we've got and we can kind of use that as a visual to show and represent things that you would have credit for and see where we stand.
Perfect. Well, very good. Again, this is the contact information from our panelists for this evening. And we do want to thank you for joining us. We're really glad that you were here with us this evening and hope that you learned a lot. And please feel free to reach out to any of us if you do have any more questions. We'd be more than happy to assist you in any way that we can.